Kia ora tātou, ko Justin Kennedy Good toku ingoa. No tamaki makaurau aho. Ke aramanawa aho I mahi ana. Tēnā koutou katoa. Hello everybody, thank you for the opportunity to speak to your conference in Norway and to speak about our team, Aotearoa, and our role at Auckland City Hospital, Aotearoa, New Zealand. I introduced myself with a short pepeha, which is an Indigenous or Māori way to introducing who I am and where I'm working. I'm still learning how to do this, so you'll forgive my pronunciation. You'll hear Emma and Saab do the same. And notice that our work does emphasize a relationship with Ngāti Whātua, the local iwi or tribe, as we learn to work and walk in two worlds, embracing Te Ao Māori and changing some of the ways that our Western hospital system works and transitioning to being a more human-centric service environment for how we work and how we deliver care. I've slightly adjusted the agenda for the flow of the presentation into three sections. I will provide a small amount of context, the origins of Aotearoa and how we work and what our operating model looks like, as I think that may be of interest. Then you'll hear an outline from Emma about a co-design example, and that will be followed by Sav, who will talk about design and innovation and us looking forward to how our team may work in the future. You might want to use the break between these three talks to top up your coffee. To give you some context about Aotearoa and New Zealand, we have a population of 5 million, with 1.7 million based in the wider Auckland area. As a country, we're 70% European, 17% Māori, 15% Asian, and 8% Pacific. In Auckland, the stats are slightly different. Auckland is 60% European, 23% Asian, 15% Pacific, and 11% Māori. It's important to note that whilst those headline titles, Māori, Pacific, Asian, European, may give you a sense of four major buckets, as it were, of ethnicity, within each there is a huge amount of diversity. Auckland is one of the most diverse cities on the planet. And unfortunately, in New Zealand, we have persistent inequities in health outcomes across these various ethnicities and groups. Another important contextual element for New Zealand is Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Signed in 1840, this acts like a constitution for New Zealand. It enables partnership between Māori and the Crown. Acknowledgement of Te Tiriti and the delivery of public services was initially poor to near non-existent. This has changed over decades, if not centuries, and there's been a gradual recognition of its status and its application, and this is gaining momentum. This informs some of the context of our work. Auckland, where Aotearoa is based, Auckland City Hospital, Auckland District Health Board, is one of three district health boards serving the wider Auckland City. We have three main campus sites: Auckland City Hospital, the Green Lane Clinical Centre, and Starship Children's Hospital. These are our main clinical services centres, and they are based in the CBD. Across these, we have almost 12,000 staff, more than 1,100 inpatient beds, and we're a publicly funded institution. We also provide quaternary services across Aotearoa. So we are, in some subspecialties, the hospital of last resort. There is currently a major change underway in New Zealand to bring our 20 DHBs across the country into one entity called Health NZ. This will work alongside a newly formed Māori Health Authority. It's a once-in-a-generation health system change to provide better integration of care, governance, and delivery that better reflects Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and it is hoped to address administrative complications such as incompatible IT platforms, complicated cost transfers, and service delivery models trying to balance specialist capability with more generalist and local delivery of care close to home. We may need to adapt to this change by offering our Aotearoa services to additional hospitals, but we, like many services in New Zealand, are waiting to see how this will unfold. Ko wai mātou, ko Aotearoa mātou. To understand the origins of our design team in the hospital, we need to go back to the financial crisis of 2008 and the opportunity that presented. When the global financial crisis hit, year-on-year increase in funding to the health system dropped from 7% per annum down to 2% per annum. In addition, targets were introduced like those that we saw in the NHS, maximum wait times in the emergency department, increased elective discharges, and other cancer treatment targets were introduced. In response, the then CEO sought a new way to deliver healthcare, or for us to think about how we do things. He recruited an ex-3M executive, and recognizing that our hospital departments would be investing in project teams to achieve targets and contain costs, centralized the budget for this type of work. This created a single improvement capability known as the Performance Improvement Team. When the team was formed, Lean Six Sigma was chosen by the Chief Medical Officer as the primary methodology for improvement. Whilst the team was open to any method, it was felt that Lean Six Sigma would be well received because it is so data-oriented with tools like statistical process control charts, which it was felt at the time that clinicians would respond well to. It would also enable us to have a consistent language when talking about improvement and change. I have a short video to play for you that provides an overview of one area of focus, and that is the emergency department 6-hour wait time target. So I will play that for you now. It's about 3 or 4 minutes.
In 2009, arriving at Auckland City Hospital's adult emergency department was often overcrowded and not a good experience for our patients. You could expect to wait over 8 hours to be admitted to a ward bed from ED, some more than a day. Too often the hospital was full. We didn't want to build another floor on the hospital, so we tried a different approach. We created a performance improvement team with improvement specialists from different industries to help improve our processes with methods relatively new to healthcare, such as Lean, a methodology designed to help staff see how to increase value for customers by reducing waste in processes to make it easier and more efficient to do our work. Six Sigma, a way of improving processes by reducing variation so we're more likely to hit the targets we're aiming for our patients. Change leadership, an approach to engage everyone so we can work on hard problems that no one could solve on their own. And user-centered design, an approach to work with patients and staff to design solutions that work best for them. Members from the performance improvement team worked alongside our clinicians and did a lot of analysis. We decided to work on all things our patients wait for during their stay: assessments, decisions, diagnostics, equipment, therapy and communication. We started making improvements in communication between clinicians and in discharge planning, and patients started going home earlier. Several of us participated in Greenbelt training. The trainers were improvement specialists, and we each had our own improvement project with our own project team. So pretty soon we had a lot more people working on wait times. We asked everyone to help and communicated it as valuing our patients' time. We made more improvements, and then we organised our first rapid improvement event. Wait times for beds were down to just over an hour, but more and more patients were presenting, so we kept improving. The General Medicine Service joined up with improvement specialists, and the team found a way to balance the number of patients per doctor and improve after-hours care. Length of stay dropped by 20%. Meanwhile, nurses in several wards began to lead a programme to streamline ward processes to release time to care, freeing them up to spend more time with patients. Some of our nursing teams are able to spend 2 more hours per nurse per shift with patients, and that's better care. In 2013, we worked on several more projects, and more again in 2014. And now when we stop and look back, had we done nothing, our patients would have spent an additional 35 years waiting for beds. And with so many more patients coming to hospital, we would have expected to have more patients staying in those beds. But actually, we don't. We have 100 fewer patients than expected every night, and that is the hidden hospital we uncovered.
In terms of clinician time and patient time, performance improvement as a team have contributed millions of dollars in additional throughput and avoided waiting, as well as improving the experience of delivering and receiving care through supportive programs such as advanced care planning, how we use donated blood products and procedures, how we work in our ward environments to ensure that nurses have time to spend their time with patients as they train to do. There is an entirely different presentation about the range of work that performance improvement have undertaken over the last 10 years that should be given by other colleagues, but it is very important to acknowledge the role of performance improvement, the team that I joined and helped to set up, as a platform for establishing design in the hospital. There are many similarities between Lean, Six Sigma, and design. Going to the workplace to see how work is done, respect for the people that do the work, enabling users, whether staff, patients, family, to create change. These are the three that I see as most in common. There are tools that overlap as well, and it is possible to arrive at the same solution using different methods. To provide one example, we introduced a specific coordination role with a coloured vest in our emergency department using lean methods to improve flow and coordination on the shop floor. We heard years later a presentation from a US hospital extolling the virtues of the power of design. Design was used, underpinned by the IDEO method, to arrive at exactly the same conclusion and solution in an emergency department in the US. People have power. Methodologies simply enable or disable that power, and we need to work in a way that brings together the best of the tools available, such that our staff, patients, and families can deliver and receive the care that they require. Whilst Lean and Six Sigma are excellent at optimizing current practice, and our team was initially made up of chemical and mechanical engineers brought into the hospital environment who were very good at deductive reasoning and convergent thinking, what if your current practice is consistently delivering inequitable outcomes for some parts of your community? What if you want to do more than redesign a process? Design and co-design can complement Lean Six Sigma when you want to rethink rather than optimize. They are stronger at identifying unmet needs and make explicit room for divergent thinking. In addition, design has subspecialties in product, digital, architecture, experience, visual design, and so forth, where Lean Six Sigma is generally limited to process redesign. With the change in leadership of the performance improvement team, a public health physician with an interest in co-design, we explored the potential for design in a hospital. In around 2012, we had a senior executive at the hospital who happened to be married to the head of a local design school faculty. Through these relationships and other serendipitous connections, we introduced 2 student design projects into the hospital. As a teaching hospital, we are used to students and interns tackling hospital research opportunities. The success of these 2 projects led to the formation of the Design for Health and Wellbeing Lab. This was a co-funded venture between AUT, a university about 1 or 2 kilometres down the road from us, and Auckland District Health Board. We had a space in the main clinical services building where I had established a project to examine our transport, wayfinding, and public spaces. That space, a concrete shell intended for future radiology expansion, was converted to a temporary site for a design lab. It enabled a place that felt different, that was close to clinical practice, where we could apply design know-how to clinical issues and opportunities. The funding for this came from the performance improvement budget. That was centralized back in 2008 and 9. Design was seen as complementing our Lean Six Sigma skill set. And Lean can subsidize the investment in design through its optimization work. This remains partly the case today. As design solutions, those that improve an experience do not necessarily translate into immediate cost savings, and our work needs to pay its way given demand for health services always outstrips supply. Hiring a designer to explore new ways of doing things means resisting the temptation to simply hire another nurse or doctor or buy another piece of equipment to deliver healthcare how we currently do today. A co-funded and co-located model enabled us to increase the number of student projects, as there are no end of students that want to work on problems that matter in a healthcare setting. The university hired a number of designers to work on hospital projects also. The Script project was a highlight and worth mentioning. Script is an app that was built in partnership with the National Institute for Health Innovation, housed at Auckland University, our Design for Health and Wellbeing lab, and led by clinicians. Its intent is to support antimicrobial prescriptions for various subspecialties. It's to be a tool used at the bedside by clinicians when making clinical decisions. The National Institute for Health Innovation had the algorithms, the decision framework provided by clinicians. They had a developer to build the back end of an app, but our designers were able to apply the user experience and user interface capability alongside clinicians to work out how should we design this app so it will be most useful for clinicians. That app has been a Aotearoa success. It has, I believe, in the last year or year before, it had over 1 million unique uses, and 7,000 users across the country. It has actually been used internationally. We can see that from the Google data. This was a great example of collaboration where design and design know-how brought alongside clinicians with the right technical capability in the background can create solutions in partnership and allow our clinicians to do their work with confidence, reduced risk, and reduced administration overhead. The Design for Health and Wellbeing Lab helped us learn about the role of design and partnership potential. It did present challenges for us too. Firstly, hospital design literacy is very low. Project selection requires careful consideration of who the sponsor is and whether or not you have the prerequisites for good design research, experimentation, and a likely path to funded implementation. You need to consider the value exchange and alignment of incentives for the various partners that you're working with. Hospitals don't run like a bank or a telecommunications company. There are many different mini cultures and networks within each clinical subspecialty and support service. They are very complex, with varying priorities, funding streams, histories, constraints, preferences, and styles. Universities are funded based on publication and number of students. The hospital, however, is funded on a population and transaction-like basis for number of procedures completed. It is interested in the delivery of solutions into the hands of patients and clinicians. The operating model that we'd employed in our Design for Health and Wellbeing lab didn't address the divide between discovery, definition, design, and delivery of solutions. It was still fragmented. Potential external collaborators, inventors of new technology, would occasionally approach our design lab, but we weren't equipped to support them in engaging the hospital. There was no front door for people who were outside the system to come in and test and trial new ideas. Many hospital design opportunities don't have research merit. They're boring, they're tactical, or they don't align with university curriculum, schedule, or structure. The hospital had a volume of issues to work on that one university department may not have the capacity, expertise, or interest to engage in. And universities are not free labor. There were also logistical considerations. Having shared finances as a co-funded lab meant that we were exchanging funds to run a lab, but not always clear as to where those funds were going and how the time was being spent. Being a government organisation, we need to be very transparent with our finances, and this did present some challenges. Taking the learning from this venture, we established Aotearoa in 2018. Our Chief of Tikanga, Dame Nada Glavish, gifted the name Aotearoa to us. We used the metaphor of a whale finding its way in the ocean or a seabird travelling long distances. We launched with 2 organisation-wide projects. Firstly, enabling safe, increased use of 3D printing. Secondly, restoring our whānau rooms to their original purpose. Emma will speak about the whānau rooms in her presentation. we began employing our own designers into the hospital. A patient, their family, or clinician doesn't experience healthcare in a single process, product, or system isolation. However, we generally organise our care delivery into various siloed specialties. Aotearoa is an interdisciplinary team exploring and creating the stuff, spaces, and systems needed by our staff, patients, and their families. The complex nature of health and our work demands intentional inquiry from many viewpoints and an open, curious mind. Our multidisciplinary team is able to challenge assumptions brought to us and the assumptions that we hold ourselves. At the core of our work is the patients, their families, and staff within Auckland DHB. Our skill sets come together in service of enabling solutions for these people. Our team structure also supports implementation of solutions. Our spatial designer is very well connected to our facilities department for architectural opportunities. Our communications department is connected to our visual designers. Our clinical engineering department is connected to our product designer, and our co-design capability connects through to our consumer experience team and council. We need to ensure that the necessary design outcomes we identify translate into practice, and to do that we need to have relationships with the various support services that effectively enable the hospital to function. We now work with all the design schools around the country. There are 5 of these at 5 universities in Aotearoa with a design school. Over the last 18 months, we've been asked to extend collaborations to other non-clinical disciplines. We work with the creative writing faculties, we work with the law school, we work with business schools. This further extends our ability to explore issues in a low-risk, low-cost way. The small amount of funding that we have from a central budget created or sliced off in 2018 from performance improvement recognises the ongoing value added by Aotearoa, and that design can contribute to unlocking improved experience, which in turn can help address consistently inequitable outcomes. In addition to this budget, we support capital projects such as new facility builds and research projects, and so we're able to tap into different funding sources to increase the size of the team, recruit different skills, and this provides scale, flex, and room for more diversity of thought and experience within Aotearoa. This does require a constant juggling of resources, but it is a key enabler of success. If I were to write a business case to justify the creation of a future-focused creative team, that would be working within the constraints of how the business currently thinks and unlikely to be successful. We need a way to be both on and off the radar of the organisation, clearly delivering value, but avoiding the near-term focus, patterns and constraints that are business as usual. Most of our designers have agency experience, and it's worth noting that some are part-time, with their own private design clients or businesses outside the hospital. As healthcare can be slow to change and can also co-opt our thinking, it's important our designers stay current, stay challenging, and can exercise their full creative potential. A private practice provides that opportunity for them. There are 3 main ways that we do our work. They are not unique to us, but our position within the hospital and our approach is a critical enabler to our identification, acceleration, and translation of work. I won't go into examples. You can see these on our blog at aotearoa.com. I will mention, however, that during COVID, we offered our design know-how and time, in particular visual design and spatial design, to help with immediate COVID response, whether making clear procedure change as we adapt to updated protocols, spatial solutions so our labs could process tests safely and efficiently, or communications to help with maintaining the distinction between clean and dirty physical areas. In the context of a global pandemic, everyone needed to help the organisation respond. I will summarise the elements that I believe are necessary to be successful in setting up a design team in a hospital. You need to secure executive support. You need to deliver against opportunities that matter to the organisation. You need to lift the design literacy of the organisation. You need to find low-cost, low-risk ways to explore, learn, and deliver value. You need to ensure that people in your team can use their creativity. You need to ensure that any partnership that you form is clear about the flow of value. You need to find and hold on to amazing people. You need to build relationships within your organisation and your community. You need to collaborate with other tools and teams like Lean. And you need to remember that healthcare is about people, not methods. That provides a whirlwind overview of Aotearoa, where we came from and how we work. We're the only design team in a hospital in Aotearoa currently, but we hope our example will encourage more design investment in the years to come. I'll now hand over to Emma, who will be followed by Sav. Thank you for your time.